Former President Donald Trump is doubling down on a plan to boost U.S. manufacturing by imposing steep tariffs on all imported goods, at least 10% across the board and up to 60% on products from China. Vice President Harris calls it a sales tax on all Americans.
And economists tend to agree with Harris. A study by the Peterson Institute for International Economics found that Trump's proposed tariffs could cost the typical American household more than $2,600 a year.
Here to talk more about how all of this could potentially work, financial advisor Rob Wilson from Wilson Insight. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. You think about this plan, and there's been so much focus on tariffs, and the idea behind them is, hey, if it's more expensive to buy an imported product, you would buy the domestic product instead. From your perspective, what would that mean for American consumers?
Well, first of all, I think we have to make sure that we're all on the same page about how tariffs works. Look, only two things can be true with regards to this discussion, and it's either Donald Trump actually doesn't know how tariffs work, or he's comfortable with lying to voters and thinking that they're not going to do something and figure out something that's easily Googleable. So we have to be clear that the importer pays all of the cost of the tariff. The Customs and Border Administration handles the tariff. So when the item comes in, the importer has to pay all of those tariffs, and largely they pass that cost on to consumers. So when we hear all of this talk that China is paying the tariffs and we can do all of this, these great things with the money, it's actually American companies and taxpayers that are paying the cost of those tariffs. And by the way, it's not just easy to say, okay, if there's a tariff, I'm going to switch and buy these items from another country. The reason that we had a lot of inflation is because it's not easy to stand up these global supply chains. So you may be locked into paying that tariff simply because you can't get the items that easily from other places.
Interesting. I want to get your thoughts on a recent Wall Street Journal article written about this. It says a second Trump presidency stands to radically remake world trade, saying tariffs could rise to the highest level since the 1930s. So we're thinking Great Depression era. Anything from a global trade war to a U.S.-led system against China could be the result. So we're talking about a drastic overhaul potentially.
Yeah, this could really be a disaster anytime you get into a global trade war. But we have information from his last administration about how those tariffs worked. So the tariffs that he imposed from 2018 to 2020, 92% of the income from those tariffs had to go to bailouts to farmers because they were being hurt by retaliatory tariffs from China. So just because you decide to do ridiculous tariffs on a country doesn't mean that they're not going to retaliate against you. So now if we're going to bring other countries into this as well, it could create the whole global supply chain into chaos.
Because you look back at the first Trump administration, and we heard about tariffs then, and then President Biden actually kept some of those tariffs on Chinese imports in place today, and he's even added his own, like on electric vehicles, on steel, on aluminum. Why are those policies different than what we're hearing former President Trump say now?
Yeah, the policies aren't necessarily different, but when you come into an administration and there are policies already in place, they're in sort of between a rock and a hard place. If you reduce the tariffs, you look like you're being easy on China, and your China policy is vastly different than the previous administration. But if you keep them, obviously, you're contributing to increased costs. So the tariffs that they left in place, and you can think about tariffs that they put on with electric vehicles, it's a much smaller percentage than, of course, the former president is talking about now, putting tariffs on 100% of imports from your house. And you look at labels, we import a ton of things from China, and so that's going to mean an incredible increase in cost to the American consumer.
Financial advisor Rob Wilson, thanks for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.